Welcome back. The SA Human Rights Commission is concerned, it says, with budget cuts in the education sector. The provinces have already indicated budget cuts include the Western Cape and Gauteng. In fact, in the Western Cape, over 2,000 teaching posts are expected to be cut. In Gauteng, plans to cut funding on school nutrition and scholar transport to save jobs. Joining us now to unpack the story is Commissioner in the Northwest for the Human Rights Commission, Shirley Mlombo. It's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. And it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it, Shirley, that for any sector to be affected by budget cuts, it's the education sector.
Good afternoon, Michelle and your viewers. And just a point of correction, I'm the provincial manager for the Commission in the Northwest and not a commissioner. Indeed, as the South African Human Rights Commission, we believe that this decision to cut the budget, particularly to the education sector and also other social services sectors, is a regressive step, and it will really erode some of the gains that we've made in, basic education in South Africa.
Absolutely. And the plan in Gauteng just doesn't make sense, does it? I know you speak on behalf of the Human Rights Commission in the Northwest, Shirley, but to cut back on school nutrition and transport jobs to save teaching posts, it's sort of cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah, indeed, we will agree with that sentiment, because education, as we've indicated in some of the reports that we have published, that education is not just about curriculum, delivery. And our courts have also found that issues of school nutrition are a fundamental component of the right of access to education. And also in some cases, we found that, adequate infrastructure is also a core component of the right to education and not just the delivery of the curriculum. So it is important that as the state delivers on the right to education, they don't only focus on what happens in the classroom, but all the other facets that have impact on the fulfillment and enjoyment of this right.
Certainly, and I want to get to the issue of infrastructure in just a moment, because that includes things like eradicating pit toilets at some of our schools, right? But the issue in Gauteng around cutting the school nutrition program and transportation, it will mean, if indeed it does come to pass, on the one hand, we might save these 3,000 teacher jobs. On the other hand, children might battle to get to school, and when they do, they might be hungry in class.
Yes, and that cannot be the case, Michelle. And that's why, as a commission, we felt it necessary that whilst we're listening to many of the debates around the budget cuts, they centered mostly around jobs. And as a commission, we agree that jobs are very crucial. They're important for livelihoods, and also they're important that for addressing issues like overcrowding in classrooms. But it cannot be the only conversation we're having around the budget cuts. We must look at all other facets that will be, affected by these budget cuts. And it will not be a correct step to say, to save jobs, then you're going to cut on other essential programs that are essential for the delivery of education in our schools.
And of course, Shirley, when we talk about pit toilets at schools and children losing their lives in the most horrific ways in pit toilets, the Northwest Province does come to mind. So when we talk again about how these budget cuts will impact on things like infrastructure and eradicating pit toilets, what do we make of that?
It is going to be, regressive, and it's going to affect the current efforts that are being made by the Department of Education to address infrastructure. And mind you, Michelle, that even currently, even before the budget cuts were announced, the Department of Education was telling us that they do not have enough resources to address all the infrastructural challenges that we've brought to their attention. So a decision that has been taken now to further cut an already constrained budget is going to make it impossible for the department to provide redress, particularly in the schools, most of which are very poor and historically Black communities. So we believe that it is gonna, hinder the current efforts that are being made to address infrastructure in our schools, particularly the eradication of toilets. Also, issues like water is a big problem in our schools. School classrooms are falling apart, there are cracks, ceilings are falling apart. So there is a mammoth task. And to address all these challenges, there needs to be proper funding of our education sector.
And that's the thing about these budget cuts, isn't it? Is that the worst affected communities will be the ones that are already struggling.
Indeed, because we know that your former model schools, C schools, they have the capacity just to raise, the fees that are payable to them and be able to offset the impact of the budget cuts. But this is not the same for especially our quintiles 1 to 3 schools, which are in predominantly historically Black and poor communities. So it means that the adverse impacts they are already suffering are going to be exacerbated by the decision to cut the budget of the education sector.
Yeah, yet another bump in the road, to say the least, for young people who are doing their best, already fighting an uphill battle to try and get an education. As the Human Rights Commission, particularly in the Northwest, and your national body as well, where do we take this conversation from here, Shirley? Where does our lobbying for more funding in education, how do we do that as the Human Rights Commission?
As we've indicated in our statement, we will seek to engage with the Portfolio Committee on Education because we understand that they already have processes underway to also try and intervene in this matter. We'll then seek to also engage with the Minister of Education as well as the Minister of Treasury to discuss the impact of these cuts, not only in the education sector. We are aware that there are also cuts in the health sector, which is facing similar challenges as the challenges being faced by the education sector, challenges with infrastructure, challenges with staffing, to really engage on the impact of these budgetary decisions on the fulfillment of socio-economic rights. And as the Constitution indicates, there must be a progressive realization of these rights. And decisions like this will therefore impact the progressive realization of socio-economic rights, not just the right to education. So we hope to engage with the Treasury about these issues at a time that may be convenient to themselves as well.
And having said that, it is an urgent matter. Shirley Mlombo, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. The Commissioner for the Human Rights Commission in the Northwest, as we talk budget cuts affecting two of the most critical sectors and portfolios in our country, health.